So, you guys, I have a big honor today to speak with these two people, one of whom was a professor of mine way too many years ago, in when I was doing a master's program at the Holmes Institute. And I was so blessed to have taken classes with this man because of the information that he has brought to all of us really about the quantum field. And there is now a new book out. So I want to welcome Dr. Amit Goswami and Valentina Orinzo. Did I say that right?
Onisor.
Onisor.
Hmm?
Okay, I'm just going to call you Valentina. And you guys, they have a new book out called The Return of the Archetypes. And I got excited, you guys, when this came over my desk, if you will, because I've just recently kind of investigated archetypes for myself, for my own personal inner learning curve. And so I was excited to get this book and see how archetypes and quantum physics fits together. So, Dr. Goswami, would you first explain to everybody what the quantum worldview is? I know that's a really big topic, but so that people have a general overview, and then we'll dive into the book a bit more.
Okay, I'll be happy to. The conventional scientific worldviews ever since 1980 is called scientific materialism. Matter is everything. What that means is basically consciousness does not exist except as something of a subjectivity which we cannot explain except for experiences that we cannot explain.
Yeah.
But maybe they don't have any causal power anyway. Therefore, their explanation don't matter. Now, quantum physics per se, of course, is originally founded for a physics of elementary particles. And there we find that the physics is not in agreement with the Newtonian materialist worldview in the following sense. Matter moving in space and time, that's the materialist picture. But
Mm-hmm.
what quantum physics suggests that all quantum objects are both wave and particle. But this is not a good statement because upon examination from actual experimental data, we find that the waves never appear in space and time, never appear in daylight. They're always hidden. Whenever we measure, we don't see waves. We see a localized particle. Let me make it more explicit. An electron has many possible positions as a wave. You all have seen waves. Waves are big, bigger and bigger. They become bigger and bigger as the wave propagates. So electrons are the same way, except we never see this wave nature. Whenever I try to see the electron becomes localized and it shows up only in one position, like a particle should.
I see. Yes.
So what this is suggesting, without any question, is that the waves belong to a different domain of reality. We can call it the domain of potentiality, but the space-time matter-motion model of materialist of Newtonian physics is wrong. Quantum objects violated because quantum existence covers two domains, domain of potentiality, and that domain itself becomes the domain of actuality when we measure them. And the process of measurement, our observation, our observership is involved. So somehow consciousness gets involved. So when we go through the details, what happens is that we find that consciousness is the ground of being in which all quantum objects, whether physical or non-physical, even that doesn't matter. We can permit non-material objects as well. They are all possibilities for consciousness to choose from. When consciousness chooses, we get reality. At the same time, consciousness identifies with the brain, which is always involved in a measurement, the observer's brain. And that identity is what we experience as the subject or self, the experiencer of an event of experience. So the experience that materialists posit as meaningless, ornamental, Here it's very definite and powerful. Why? Because we not only see, but our choice precipitates what will be the case. So if we can get over our conditioned choices, in which limit we become kind of Newtonian machine-like. But if we can get over that, and Valentina and I have been writing books showing people how to get over this base level condition, then when we are creative, we can create things that we want within the limits of science of consciousness, which really expands our free will, freedom of choice, these things into a causal efficacy to create a new reality that we have never seen before. Of course, there's a caveat. We have a lot of built-in Newtonian machinery in our brain. So we have to get over those. People just cannot get to quantum power, which is really a spiritual power, just like that. We have to investigate, we have to explore, we have to embody the archetypes. This is where archetypes come in. Archetypes are objects of intuition in quantum way of looking at ourselves.
Okay, so thank you for all of that. And I have like 10,000 more questions just from that little mini dose there. So I'm just going to plant this because I want to talk about the archetypes, but I just want to plant this for us to address a little later today of the whole quantum potentiality and what's occurring in the world right now, because I have an opinion about that, and I want to I want to hear your guys' wisdom about that. But Valentina, so Dr. Goswami just said that the archetypes they come in to play in order to help us get rid of this old conditioning. Did I hear that correctly?
Well, yeah, it is about living a life with meaning and purpose, And usually, again, once we understand the human condition, and you would, if whoever is studying a little bit of quantum science, that's the beauty, because once we understand the condition, what is conditioning us, and that includes knowing about the negative emotional brain circuits, which are embedded in the brain, which I didn't know until I met Professor Goswami. And the fact that our job is 5 times more to create the positive, so that first of all, we balance the negative, and then we move on, to other levels. But nowadays, as you see, it's even dementia in so early ages, it's manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's, in the past, it was not like that. But nowadays, because we have all this consumerism era and quick fix era, and information processing era, so we have to become aware what is the human condition, what are the obstacles, but then still make this step into seeing what are our qualities in this life that we came specifically in this life for, what is our karma, our dharma, which they're very much together, because many times we may say, oh my God, my life is so difficult, I have a bad karma, so it's bad when it's stopping us engage into this creative work in discovering what is our mission in this life, what is our archetype. We call them archetypes. We refer to the divine attributes, actually. So the more we live a life with meaning and purpose, and the more we cultivate these divine virtues, values. These are values. It's infinite attributes, if you want, like love, for example, or goodness, or there are, we speak about archetypes at different levels. The personal level, you start with Enneagram. It's about knowing yourself, and then you move to the soul archetypes, which are the feminine, the masculine archetypes. But then eventually we speak about these platonic archetypes, which Amit speaks about. So there are 9 main archetypes. And the idea is to learn how to live, work, and, so that kind of, it's not going to be just a job that you're doing, but actually you're discovering yourself, you're growing together with what you're doing when what you're working is in line with your archetype. So for example, you're an artist, if you're an artist, your soul is an artist, is the archetype of beauty. Yeah, it would be more difficult to be an artist and become a lawyer, let's say.
Right, right.
Yeah, or wholeness, the medical profession, for example, the integration of all the dichotomies. When you're a doctor, for example, you heal yourself together with all the people that are coming towards you. And it's so interesting. Like when you really have something yourself, you will discover that 100 people with the same problem, they are coming towards you. So that you see and you go through together with, while you're doing your profession, for example. So that's the coherence, if you want, that we are looking for.
So I just want to say out loud, because you mentioned a couple of them, Valentina, what the divine attributes or the archetypes are that you have listed, and you break it down in the book. So there's abundance and power, beauty, goodness, justice, truth, wholeness, self. And is there one more? There's one more.
Love.
Love.
That's really kind of love. Isn't love the whole overarching thing anyway?
Yeah, I mean, everybody should investigate this archetype of love if you are human, there's beauty. There's also the human condition, which you need to understand, but there's also beauty in being a human. There's so much potentiality that otherwise we waste, and this potentiality to open your heart to love, which can take us to the supramental levels of being. We are really, but in the same time, again, we have to see what are the blockages, what are the obstacles in the path of our growth. And it is really a hero's journey. Then it's another book which we wrote, Hero's Journey, Quantum Style. And that's where, again, we go into archetypes and all this hero's journey of transformation and healing.
So let me ask you this, because as you were just talking, Valentina, my brain is popcorning right now, blah, 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 blah. Which is a good thing. So it isn't that each individual has one archetype. Isn't it that we all have variations of all of the archetypes in us, and it's whichever one we want to get to choose to develop? Is that right, Dr. Goswami?
Yeah, more or less. So we eventually get into the archetype of wholeness, which contains all the other archetypes. So we go slow by slow. Initially, we just start with one archetype. Usually people who are interested in power, because doing anything, we require power. So they are looking at power, but usually they begin in a very conditioned way. They look at, physical power, something that we are born with. Then you develop a little. Human brain is constructed in such a way that it can process the mind, meaning. And so we started meaning processing. This is like thousands of years ago. And then we developed a kind of what we call mental power. We acquire knowledge. Every event of mental experience gives us mental memory, and those memories can add up, and then we have knowledge. Knowledge is power. So we can use this knowledge to organize the physical power. Quantum physics brings some other aspects of power which we'll talk about later. But in this way, goodness and love plays a very fundamental role in terms of becoming sort of mediator of the rawness, brutality of physical power. Physical power is like exerting a force. We really are affecting the other in the interaction in a very brutal way. You are changing the other in a physical way, changing the hardware. Whereas mental just works on the software. It changes your belief system, changes how you choose your, even Donald Trump, take that case. I mean, he tries to subjugate everybody to his belief system. You have to believe me. So mental power can be used like that. And then, as Valentina was mentioning, then when we get into quantum way of doing the archetypes, we enter into new archetypes, goodness and love. What that does is exploration gives us positive emotions. And when we use the positive emotions, then we no longer coerce people into accepting what I say, dominate others. Instead, what we do is to put our examples that, look, I love you, and it's your choice. You can love me or not. But I will keep on persuading you that loving is a very good way of acting the two of us together. When we do that, we provide another way of exerting power where you and I join together, become one, and we have the same choice because we have love for each other.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a much respectful way of including the other. Whereas in the mental Newtonian way, what we do is we dominate the other either by fear or by greed, some kind of way. We dominate the other to bring the other into my belief system. Whereas
Right.
when
So
the spiritual quantum power, then we are really, really persuading the other by my example that I love you. I'll continue to love you whether you love me or not. But eventually that gets to the other and they respond. And when they respond, you and I become one, and that's spiritual power.
yes. Okay. So you just said a mouthful right now because there's so much I want to tease out for people to really comprehend and understand. So this actual physical power is a much smaller, doesn't it kind of, oh, hello. It vibrates at a lower frequency, right? And the oneness power
You
lifts
can
us all
put it
up.
that way, but Susan, you have to be very careful. Physical power, although it seems like it's lesser than the others, but in actuality, physical power is where things actually happen. And they should not be really disregarded. Like, the abuse, murder, all those deviant activities that go on, eventually you have to understand, mental power eventually provides the threat of physical power. It works on the basis of always providing either a threat or a greed, that I will help you make money or make abundance. At the same time, the negative way it works is that if you don't follow my organization, then eventually the threat is a physical one. Don't
Right,
forget.
I see. Okay, so the mental, which we're watching play out right now, I can't even believe this, but the mental power is the one that can either manipulate to someone else's desire, if you will, or the mental power can help in. I just keep hearing lifting up.
So there is the lower mind where we employ the mental power for my survival only. So I survive if you allow me to dominate you. See, your survival depends on my agreeing and you're agreeing that you bend your knee to me, and then I'll let you survive as well. Whereas the spiritual power is that I give you full choice, except I want to persuade you that I will continue to love you and I will never use physical power over you and none of that. But look, I love you. If that makes sense to you, if you want to reciprocate, I will very much welcome it. You and I will become one, then our power will increase because two of us is better than what we were before, just one.
Yes, I hear you. Okay, so then utilizing or becoming aware of the various attributes or archetypes, how do you suggest an individual works with them? I heard one at a time, taking it one at a time as we overcome the conditioning of thousands of years, right, of human existence. But it feels like we're on an accelerated path. It's not a timeline anymore because there really isn't any time, but this accelerated path. So it feels like taking it one at a time is going to take another couple thousand years.
Certainly, because the whole journey began, it turns out that the anthropologists have now discovered that we self-domesticated ourselves around 70,000 years ago. We completed the journey. It probably began hundreds of thousands of years ago, but we completed the journey of self-domestication. What that means is that become less violent than animals. So less violent means what? That's the first time we embodied the archetype of goodness in us. We could control our defensiveness. Instead of expanding defensiveness to everybody that we see, and whenever the threat comes, we attack or we run away. Instead of behaving like that, which is how animals behave, we learn to self-domesticate. We become humans that day. And that's the start of how the archetypes began to be embodied. So that's happened 70,000 years ago. Now, the process has been very slow. The archetype of goodness continued to be embodied. That led eventually to about 40% of humanity right now has the capacity of altruism. They will at least sincerely, instinctually help another person who is in distress. Look at right now, this hurricane has produced so much problem in Georgia and North Carolina. Look at the response of the Americans. It's amazing. Everybody wants to help who can. That is the kind of altruism that I'm talking about.
Yeah, so it surprises me that you say 40%, because that sounds like a smaller. I do live in a bit of a Pollyanna world, you guys, where I would love it to be 80 to 100% altruistic.
This is the thing. It's unfortunate that only 40% of us are altruistic. So what about the other 40%?
Yeah.
And that other 40% are not altruistic. So we really have a good evil struggle built into our brain. Some people have altruistic circuits and they can be good much more easily than the 40% who don't. And the other 20% has a little bit of it. They also have it, at least you can teach them fairly easily. But the 40% who don't, they are the ones who are very easily manipulated by a leader to choose hate instead of love, to choose negative emotions, like Valentina was talking about. Those are the people that creates the evil in the world, the worst, etc. And that's not an insignificant number. It's a very big number.
It is a big number. So, so Valentina, I want to ask you this. Within archetypes, as Dr. Goswami was just saying, there's a positive, with each of these attributes, there's a positive experience or expression. Does there also have to be what I would label negative, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what it is, but the opposite maybe experience. Right. So do each of these archetypes have the plus minus?
Yeah. But again, there are, as I said, there are different levels of these archetypes. But the idea is to know ourselves, which will lead to the real development and transformation. Because knowing your archetype and knowing still, because again, we have to start with something, and usually we have resonance with one or two archetypes in a lifetime, now. Yeah. Some people, again, because, this journey is not just this life. So some people, again, we kind of explored other archetypes, and now we have to explore this one, wholeness, which is really all the dichotomies kind of uniting, so not feminine, masculine, superior, inferior, outer, so it's all the dichotomies in the path of wholeness. But again, when we just ask ourselves, so again, before finding a profession, we should do that, I believe, but again, this kind of education and training, attention, and really going towards being a person with character in this world, which can embody these archetypes for the world, and then only get out of the world. But now we are in the world for a reason, no?
Yes.
So, and this training should be there, at early ages. If not, again, you have so many people who feel lost in their profession because they are not following their hearts, they are not following the archetypes. But again, studying the archetypes, and in this book, they are described so easily, you will see that there are different aspects which are harmonious, or also you're maybe lacking something. Like, for example, if you make a meditation, like what would you feel on the dying bed? What was that thing that you wouldn't want to live this life without, So what was that? Was that love, maybe? Even if you feel that you explored and you embodied love at various levels, that's one. But even if you feel that love was something that you really missed, and you're crying, your heart is really crying, Okay. Or another one, so if you have justice, and this is something which really moves you in the first years of life, but then maybe everything gets cloudy, various things because of the upbringing or traumas or other things, then you have to start with healing that child, with healing the childhood, healing, forgiving, and so many things in order to get again access to something which is there, but maybe you lost contact. And again, there are these levels, fundamental levels of a human being. And again, if you think of the deepest level, of course, is the self. Yeah. And that perfect spark, that completeness, cosmic consciousness, or God present, which is present in each human being without limitations and so on. So it's very deep part, this one. And so again, going to the archetypes is really going to touch all the levels. This is the ultimate level. But then again, as I said, there are the soul archetypes, which even understanding this feminine and masculine dichotomy and the differences between men and female and what makes a strong society or a weak society, that again, you will discover it's beautifully. I think even in the book we wrote something about this. But then again, where to start? It's with the personality, actually, So personality, for example, study of Enneagram, yeah, the way
I'm sorry, Valentina, explain to people what an Enneagram is. What does that really mean? Because I haven't interviewed anybody who does Enneagram. I know about them, but would you please explain?
Yeah. So again, it starts from the way you work, you interact with the others, and it's important to understand which is, because again, there's also some shadow when you analyze the analysis. It's about your personality, there are various filters which are through which we don't see anymore who we are, And there are all kind of complexes and all these negative emotion-based circuits, like you don't feel good enough or beauty enough, all kind of illusory limitations, which are maintained about the ego in a certain way. And when we understand these filters of the personality, which are blocking this light of consciousness, if you want, and we become aware of that, we may eventually get access to our soul, And for each of the enneagrams, it's a different way. Uh, Now, for a person which is very, very developed, then you might have problems because you may find yourself in so many other, when you study enneagram. But usually, again, it's not so difficult to find it. Again, think of archetypes even from the Enneagram level to the other ones and to these Platonic archetypes as energies of the soul or as spiritual tools that can really help us to find different connections with our own soul, We have to see what qualities we have awakened, what is active, what is vibrating when you see a blossom flower or, so something which is very specific to you. And then if we learn how to use them and to know them, then transformation becomes easier, and it will help us also to alchemize the negative emotions once we know which is our enneagram and understand more. And then again, when you have access to your soul, you can also alchemize easier an emotional tendency or a negative impulse, because again, you are going deeper and higher.
Right. I like that phrase, alchemize the emotion. I love that. Dr. Goswami, did you want to add to this?
I just wanted to add to it a little bit details, which is that in the Enneagram way of looking at things, we divide personalities into 3 types. People can be head type, intellectual type, and their archetypes are also intellectual type archetypes. So for example, if you're head type, then you go into archetype of truth or archetype of justice, and eventually archetype of self and wholeness there also. They involve all the types, but definitely head type as well. And then there are archetypes which are basic, so survival. Those are the abundance and power. That's the survival. They're all in the lower chakras, in the chakra way of looking at emotions. So that's the body type. And then there is this 3 intermediate archetypes, beauty, love, and goodness. They are the heart, so the heart type. So this classification is very useful. Now you can carry on, Valentina. We're doing fine.
Yeah, that's just the anagram. But when you speak about you can at the level of the soul, when I was mentioning the feminine and masculine, which Amit doesn't talk so much about this, but I love them and I saw the necessity. Um, it's you can think of a like from the 12 archetypes identified mainly by Jung, there are actually 4 fundamental archetypes and 4 directions of the soul, which are correlated, metaphorically speaking, with the 4 elements, which like at the base of the creation, which we have other interpretation in quantum science, but otherwise it's this water, earth, fire, air, you can, yeah. And we are using also, by the way, astrology to determine your, you know. So then you see how everybody is structured and which are the tendencies, which are specific, and then maybe they will change after 40, 50 years of age, So in astrology, we have the sun, position of the sun, but then also the rising, the ascendant, which will talk more about the personality. So when we, just to mention these 4 archetypes, the soul archetypes, and the 4 feminine, 4 masculine. So, and you can also think of them in pairs. So it's mother and the king, structured on, metaphorically speaking, earth, which is more stability, solidity. And then the second would be the fascinator and the lover, which is correlated metaphorically with water and the energy of water. And then the third would be the hero, heroine, element of fire, metaphorically. And then the fourth, the initiator and the magician or the initiator also is the air element. So, and then we speak more about axis. We have sometimes workshops, especially women workshop, when we analyze, because it's like worlds waiting there to help us understand
I can
ourselves.
imagine. Yeah, I can imagine. So, so is the idea to, I don't know if you do it in one lifetime or you got to come back multiple lifetimes, but is the idea eventually to embody all of these archetypes? Okay. And so would you suggest that globally humanity is co-working the archetype of wholeness right now because of everything that's happening, all these explosions and everybody's all the head people and the survival people and the heart people are all going beep, beep, beep. So are we all working together to get to this wholeness?
You have to be very patient here.
Okay.
Humanity, it's been the basic difference that I mentioned earlier. 40% has begun to come out of their survival archetypes to the goodness, heart, love, those archetypes. So they're just beginning to, they are body type, but they are beginning to come into the heart type and integrate the heart. This is the one that Valentina is emphasizing. Male, female, that dichotomy. Males generally tend to be body type, navel chakra, and women generally tend to be the heart chakra. And integrating those is right now is the most vitally important thing. Look at the world that is happening. Women's liberation started only in 1960s, seriously. Before then, look at even plebiscite, infinite country like America, where democracy originated. Even there, women did not even have vote until 1920. So you can see the male-female integration, how much important that is. Only now we are even contemplating getting a woman leader in America. So we are very far behind, but we are catching up very fast in this particular respect. And hopefully, as women's values come in, and you can see the distinction of male value and female value. Male value is all me-oriented, female value is other-oriented. You can see the difference in the American election right now, how different that is. And when we are able to integrate it, then really a new era of humanity can begin. Okay, so this is the emphasis of our book. Then Valentina has a concept of, this is also from Hindu tradition, Dasha Mahavidya. You should talk about that aspect, Valentina, how the feminine aspect can be even incorporated more in the world culture, and how
Yes.
that take us toward producing wholeness eventually.
Yes, please, Valentina, would you speak a bit to that?
Okay. So you can think of this cosmic powers tradition. It's a beautiful tradition, which is getting lost, like all traditions in India. But those are other kind of archetypes. They are higher archetypes. So, and if you think of an archetype, again, you know that we have just not just the physical body, there are all these other bodies. So they are actually manifesting when you can tap into the supramental level of your being. Now, I would think that humanity is still such a infantile stage, you know, because there's so much competition, so much manipulation, so much violence, and we put a weapon in the space, and we go more and more into the information processing. So I really don't know what will happen with the humanity. But at the same time, you know, any crisis can create opportunities, you know. So, and also the beauty is that when we are ready, all these supramental experiences and out of them, the archetypes can manifest. So if we are ready, if we are asking, for example, to our guardian angel when we go to sleep with the purity of the heart, show me, you know, something, you know, or be here, and what is my purpose in life? You start to really having a journal, and you pay attention to your breath a little bit more and breathe deeper so that you can slow down all this hyperactivity and so on, and just so that you can see what is under your nose, you know, because the archetypes are available. That's the beauty. You don't necessarily have to go to a temple or to a church, you know, it can be in front of you. You are looking suddenly to a field of flowers, let's say, or to a sunset, and suddenly it can hit you, a state of expansion of consciousness and a meeting with yourself, which again, it's like everything stops and you're fully experiencing, you fully love that experience, then you're fully present. So again, present is another word for the supramental level, and that's again the archetypes, and they can manifest in dreams. You know, you can have encounters with archetypes. I had with the archetype of love in so many forms, repeatedly, hundreds of times, in a period when my heart was suffering, actually. So in the normal body way and the mental way, it was like that. But when I was going to sleep, I was going to paradise hundreds of times in that period. It was so interesting. So again, you can have all these encounters. You just have to pay attention. So learning to pay attention, and then we shall see, you know, what is the archetypes that we need to, you know, to explore and eventually to embody. But the journey, it's an infinite journey anyway. So it's an infinite journey. It's an archetypal journey. And again, then we have to follow up, because we will get all kind of intuitions and insights, and then we have to put them in manifestation. We don't have to hesitate. And women, we have so many capacities, a lot of intuition also, because of the heart being more open. And in this way, you have access to non-locality, to tangle hierarchy, some of the principles in quantum science, which can put you very in direct experience with the oneness, you know. Otherwise, we just say we are one. We are not one unless we actualize that, you know. Even in a love relation, we are not one unless you bring it up again and again. Let's fall in love. Let's rise in love. Let's, you know. And looking at the person, not as you objectify the person. So actually, love, it's a powerful one, which can take us to deep experiences and alchemy, because you like this word, alchemy. Yeah. So women, again, as I said, even if we have so many qualities, because we don't have innate Manipura chakra, you know, the belly area too much developed. That's one which men have it more than women usually, you know, not always, but usually. And that's the part where we have to start, you know, as a woman, I think, to, you know, so to raise self-confidence and self-respect, yeah, and eventually self-love, because if we don't love ourselves, which many times most of women don't,
no, they don't.
It's such a long journey, my God. So learning to love ourselves, to really accept ourselves and be on our side, you know, not just to buy that pretty dress, but actually find that meaning in our life, you know, what we are here for, not only depending on a man, which again, it's a tendency because we have a weak navel chakra, you know, but at the same time, not becoming the feminist, you know, not putting your feminine qualities aside and becoming a man,
Right,
because
putting on the pants.
that's
so
very
to speak.
tricky, the thing. We want women, if women would be healed and with courage, we have in the Hindu tradition Durga, the archetype. You know, it's a beautiful manifestation of a goddess, you know, with many hands and many symbols in her hands, which is manifest. It's represented next to a lion, I think, right? So it's a power with love. So this would be one of the manifestations on the woman's part when power manifests and you accept it, and it's also love. It's awakened. Yeah. So
I
then,
love that phrase,
yeah,
power with love.
power with love and goodness. Yeah. So because otherwise, usually when people tap into first time in the power, you know, or one becomes a leader, it means that they have a little bit Manipura chakra, this belly area developed, you know, as a chakra. But then the test of power is very dangerous. Actually, it's very, you know, it's very tricky. So not many pass this test because once you have a lot of power, the tendency to manipulate will be there, to play with others, you know, to just, well, I'm powerful. And so that's a test of the ego. And you cannot pass it unless you bring up love and goodness. And ideally would be to bring that up first, you know.
Okay, so can I just say this? This is what I just heard you say, Valentina, is that uh, for women, especially right now, but that developing the power of love and goodness within ourselves is actually then leading us to be powerful as leaders.
We have to bring up consciously the navel area because love and goodness is more characteristic to women, you know, usually.
Right.
We have the maternal secret. But we have to bring up consciously the belly area. If you put your hand on the belly, you will see that usually you don't even breathe engaging the belly in the breath. So this is the easiest way to start because we have in that area, usually, again, there are points in acupuncture, in acupressure, in Ayurveda, marma points there. So in the belly area, there are various points. If you're pressing them, they are painful, which means that there's a lot of contraction, a lot of tensions there. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a brain actually. It's the first brain that we have. We wrote another book called The Quantum Brain. So the first brain, it has been already clarified by so much researchers. They even discovered neuron-like formations in the abdomen. You know, so they work on creating all kind of remedies. But it's perception and memory making capacity, you know. So there's an abdominal brain, it's the emotional brain if you call it, but it's more. So once we tap and purify this area, the solar plexus area, a lot of clarity and force is going to show up, you know, and you have the chance to tap into what is called self-respect and self-confidence and willpower. Otherwise, we are eating all this energy with desires. You know, we want this, we want that, we want this. It's good to be relaxed as a woman. You have to be relaxed in order to, that's a quality of a woman. But in the same time, we have to develop willpower and perseverance and courage. That starts there when we awaken this brain in the belly area. And then this one awaken, and together with the fact that we have love and goodness and we want to develop it more and more, it will help us, first of all, heal ourselves, then heal our relationships and create a character, really a character. You know, we need people with character. And again, we don't want to kill the ego. We want to use all these things until the later stages in life when really we had experience, we did the best that we have, but that's far further.
Yes, yes. Okay, so okay, you guys, I gotta tell you, you've just given me personally so much information, so many things to think about. I really appreciate that. Is there any one thing, but either of you want to say, or both of you, just to kind of wrap this up, let's to put a little bow on this piece of our conversation, because this was a lot today.
Yeah, I think that we would like to conclude by saying that the male-female dichotomy integration is the most important, and of course, men have to work on the heart area. They really need that. We really need that desperately. If heart is integrated with the pursuit of power, this whole situation that we see in the world that this dictatorial tendencies of leadership that is going on becomes a huge competition with democracy. Democracy, people don't understand this, but democracy really originated in a spiritual framework.
Yes.
Those early formulators of democracy, they were all spiritual people, especially in America, Jefferson, Madison. Those people were quite spiritual. And they got into this concept that somehow there has to be equality. Otherwise, it does not make sense. So why humanity is special, why humanity is different from animals. And then, of course, quantum physics will say equal potentiality. But these potentialities need to be manifest. They are potentialities. This is the other thing that one has to recognize. Right now, we are very poor in terms of manifesting potentiality. We are very poor in terms of creativity. Most people just stay in that base level condition, come up a little bit, develop the mind a little bit, rational thinking a little bit, but sacrificing positive emotions. So this is the part that we are emphasizing, that be rational. This is the age. We cannot prevent it. We have developed a huge amount of rational power, but gradually we are saying that, look, even computers can do it. So we don't really have to engage just with rationality. And now the time is to come to develop positive emotions, get into the archetypes of goodness, love, and all those higher archetypes like wholeness. Then we develop positive emotions that will balance the negative and will truly can move towards world peace. This kind of polarization that we see today will be a thing of the past.
Oh, I can't wait until it's past. I can't wait until that part's behind us. Valentina, did you want to say one more thing as well?
Okay, so I can say that again, if you want, we talk about quantum healing and about the divine grace also, because this is manifestation of divine grace. So the divine grace is there, so it's here, and all these archetypes are under our nose, But the more we cultivate the virtues, the more we, again, even learning about these ones, and then just cultivate them with creativity. So kind of set up your intent very clearly. And then something will happen, after some time. But it's not possible. Like if we continue as we are, we are not doing good. So as I see as currents, we are traveling all over the world. Right now we are in USA. So in USA and Europe, the situation is much different than in the South America or in India. And everywhere there's so interesting. You see the predominance of certain things. So either people are very much into their heads, which is most of the parts, or they are more emotional, but that doesn't mean that you're in the heart,
Right.
Yeah, the heart, it's a lot of power in our being that is waiting for us, and it's like atomic bomb, really, when you experience it. And we need courage. And also, I think we need at least one person that can be really the person that you can be yourself with. So cultivating at least one relationship, that's gold nowadays,
Yes.
So even between women, it's so much competition,
Yes.
So to being in our real nature, which is not like that, So there's a lot of alienation from the qualities that we have actually. So it's gold, cultivating, finding a person that you can really speak your mind easily without, and you help each other grow and reflect. That's happening when we have a couple relationship, which is mature,
Yes.
Otherwise, it's kind of you are using everything that the other one says against you and so on. So all this judging, it's so easy to do,
Yes.
So everyone has his own journey, obviously, and it's to be respected, but we should do better.
Well, so this is, it's so funny we're talking about potentiality today, because the theme for my show for 2024 has been be potential. Be potential. And this entire year, I have been calling, especially myself, into my full potential, but others. So every time I do a show, the back of my my mind is be potential. So I want to thank both of you for bringing this forward again, with the quantum field ideas and all of this. You guys, the book is called The Return of the Archetypes. It's by Dr. Amit Goswami and Valentina Onisor. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's by Valentina, you guys. It's a great book. And again, in the show notes, we'll have links to the other shows with Dr. Goswami, and you can hear about some of the other books that he's written. But I just want to thank both of you from the bottom of my heart. Oh, I'm getting emotional for for the work that you've been doing, you continue to do for on behalf and because of the potential of humanity. I want to thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
So
so
I'm
much.
just going to end with, and so it is, namaste.